Well, I was told that there's a clicker on the podium, so I think I'll be using the clicker. Yeah.
So you will start introducing them while sitting. Okay. And then when you ask them the question, everyone will go on the podium, finish his intervention, return back to the chair, and then you roll out the questions while they are sitting. And
what I've done is I've actually got translators already set to English. French, Arabic, yours is to the right. This is mine.
So we will probably need these.
So we're using them, right? So in case there's a question in Arabic, we'll just speak Arabic. Okay, I'm sorry, I said
we already know.
okay. Okay. So well, I don't speak Arabic, so I don't.
No, very
Except our speaker.
I guess we'll be doing a Q&A.
Right. That's the
poll.
Well, he told us to cut out any way.
Someone have it in their pocket. But it's just instead of saying next slide, next slide.
Okay, got it.
صباح الخير جميعا. أتمنى يعني كل الناس لسه محافظة على الانرجي بتاعتها يعني في آخر يوم. في ناس تعبت اوريدي بس إن شاء الله خلاص قربنا نخلص، وأتمنى إنكم ترجعوا بلدانكم وتكونوا متحمسين إن شاء الله وتشرفونا العام القادم. النهارده عندنا يعني يوم very special، يعني حبينا يكون ختامها مسك. عندنا very strong panel، عندنا discussions النهارده وفي مواضيع لأول مرة يتم ذكرها في الوطن العربي. فاحنا متحمسين جدا نسمع للتو بانلز النهارده اللي عندنا. وفي عندنا مفاجأة تكررها مفاجأة في الكلوزنج سيشن. ان شاء الله هنعلن عن مبادرات إقليمية لخدمة رواد الأعمال ورائدات الأعمال في الوطن العربي. فعايزينكم النهارده تكونوا مركزين معانا طول اليوم. اليوم قصير النهارده فركزوا كله معانا. تمام؟ في بس كومنت سريع كده الناس كانوا بيتكلموا فيه، او يعني I had some discussions. في بعض الناس يعني بيتكلموا احنا دلوقتي في القمة العربية لريادة الأعمال وأغلب المتحدثين اتكلموا إنجليزي، بس في مواضيع جديدة، في مواضيع غريبة، في تنوع. فده كان شيء كله مقصود، اللي احنا عندنا أفكار جديدة. والنهاردة هنسمع حاجات لأول مرة يتم طرحها في الوطن العربي. عندنا أفكار جديدة، جايبين الناس البايونيرز كلهم فيها ومتميزين فيها من كافة أنحاء العالم علشان يقدموا الأفكار دي ويلهموا رواد الأعمال ورائدات الأعمال العرب. والنهاردة يعني عندنا 2 بانلز، وال2 بانلز بالإنجليش، فما تزعلوش مننا. تمام؟ بس إن شاء الله الأفكار اللي موجودة فيها تكون دافع لينا اللي احنا نفتح آفاق جديدة إن شاء الله للأعمال في الوطن العربي. نرحب الآن بالجلسة الأولى تحت عنوان Opportunities Know-how, How to Create Opportunities for SMEs in Disruptive Technologies and Digitization. عندنا بانل دي الجلسة الثانية، والجلسة الأولى عندنا Inspirational Panel Disruptive Technologies and Business Models. هنسمع للمتحدثين وبتقود الجلسة كريستينا بودنر. Kristina, the floor is yours.
Kareem, and welcome to everybody. Good morning. We're very excited to be with you and appreciate your hospitality and having us here. So to kick off our panel today, very excited to introduce you to my colleagues. Joel Dietz, to my immediate right, is actually somebody who will probably not say this publicly, so I will, but he's a very creative person in addition to being creative in technology. So can I mention that you're also a poet, Joel, as part of your introduction? He's also the CEO of Metaverse, and he's also the founding member of Ethereum, which we'll hear more about today. To his immediate right, we actually have David Madié, who is the CEO of GrowthWheel International, which some of you may have met yesterday during the workshop. And then last but not least, because we look very forward to hearing your input and perspective, is Abedalrhman Habashneh. Welcome to everybody. So, gentlemen, before we start this panel, what I would like to do is level set for all of us an understanding of some of the terminology we'll be using today in case we haven't heard it before, or quite frankly, a lot of people, even in the technology industry, don't have a common agreement yet on the definition. So I'd like to start off with you, Joel, and ask you for a definition of the metaverse. After all, you are the CEO of Metaverse. So what is a metaverse?
Hello?
Yep.
You mentioned already that I'm a creative person, and I would say that the metaverse is the ultimate form for expressing creativity. It's taking something that is in your mind, some imagination, a world, a concept, and then bringing it into life and sharing it with people in the fullest expression of that. And you can do that by drawing on a piece of paper. If you're a good artist, or even if you aren't, you can draw a tree, you can draw some birds. But creating a 3D, immersive, interactive version of that is by far the fullest and most exciting version.
Great. Abdel, over to you really quickly before we come back to you, David. I want to ask, what is your definition of the metaverse? What technologies make up the metaverse?
Okay. I see the metaverse as a digital space to make the people to communicate in a virtual way. And for me, I believe the metaverse it doesn't have a real application yet in our world, but I believe it's going to have a massive application in vocational education, especially when you want to have a real communication between the trainer and the trainee, and they need to touch the thing with their hands and to practice it with their hands. I believe, and there is a high cost if you want to do it physically, and you want them to practice virtual before they move, and you want communication to be there. And I believe it's going to have massive applications in the future in the vocational education and also in the military applications.
And so, David, that sounds very theoretical to me still. How do we make this a reality? Just very briefly, because I know you'll touch upon this in your talk.
Yes, well, I think one way to look at all these technologies, metaverse, artificial intelligence, big data, and so on, is that it is just another technology. So if you're an entrepreneur and you want to go into this field, it's not going to be very different from how you start a bakery or a software company or a food business. And if you're in government or in a government-funded program, it is also no different. The skills needed to work with these new technologies are not different from the skills that are already being used to start with other technologies.
Perfect. I think that's a really great way to kick off our panel and discussion today. So I'm actually going to come back to you, Joel, ask for a little bit of your background and invite you to the podium to present to us before we go into discussion.
Pleasure to be here today. I have the fortune to be a very creative person, as was just said, and also to grow up with technology around me that allowed me to build things. So in some ways, from the smallest age, I was building games, I was building interactive things, and this got me into programming computers. And the idea originally of the computer was that basically it was something that could create some new place that was something unlike you had ever experienced before. And so I got very involved in creating different type of games, and actually my first big project was a nonprofit. And then, a few years later, I was able to come and pick up when the Ethereum community was first getting started. And it was really the first day that the Ethereum white paper had come out, and there were a lot of very brilliant people that said, we can create some new future for society and allow people to create new types of organizations. We can solve some of the world's problems. And this was very inspiring to me. So I left everything I was working on at that moment to work on Ethereum and educate people about Ethereum. This led to a number of other projects like MetaMask and different kind of wallet software that I started, and ultimately led to a new concept of the metaverse, because I think metaverse is one of these places where we can really let our imagination take over, and it can be something that's enjoyable as well. So I was just at the World Governmental Summit talking, and someone came up after the talk and said, how can we get more civic engagement? How can people engage more in this governmental process? And I said, make it fun. Make it into a gaming experience. With that, maybe we can put on the slides briefly. And I will talk a little bit about what the metaverse has been. I think we're... So the metaverse 20 years ago, I don't know who's watched the movie The Matrix, but that's basically the concept that people had back then, this idea. There's some other world out there, how can we get access to it? There was some technology that existed at the time. You have this one on the left, the Virtual Boy by Nintendo. I don't know if anyone tried it. It was a very unsuccessful project. It had 2 colors. Put it on, black and red, and no one really used it. Then you have Counter-Strike. This was when Counter-Strike, I suspect some people here have played Counter-Strike, a very, very successful game that people are still playing today, probably thousands of people at this exact moment. Then you come into Metaverse 10 years ago. You know, this is when Minecraft was started. I don't know who's played Minecraft, but my guess is many of you have children that play Minecraft. And right now there's about 100 million people playing Minecraft. So that has been the idea, basically, of people having the tools to then go out and create their own world and engage in the social experience of that. It's also the time when Oculus first came out. And kind of importantly, too, it's when Google Street View launched, which I'll come back to, but is when the Google Maps and Google Earth really started getting going. So today, you know, you have all of these different technologies that are combining into what is the metaverse, and it includes AR, VR, XR, AI, gaming. It's quite confusing, actually, because there's so many different things that people are trying, so many different types of confusing. It's also very exciting, because we don't know which is going to be successful. We don't know which is still going to exist in 10 years, and some of these things, you know, like Pokemon Go, who played Pokemon Go? It was very exciting, then people stopped using it, but it still kind of exists. So there's a lot of opportunity around trying new things and building new things. And if you look at it by the numbers, it's exploding. Basically, you can say, well, Meta is not doing well, fine. But gaming is doing great. We have maybe 3 billion gamers on the planet right now, growing steadily. It leans towards a younger audience. But gaming is the future, and especially these sort of collaborative games, you know, Minecraft, Roblox, people creating their own worlds. Now, coming to my side of the world, namely the sort of Web3, blockchain, Ethereum, all of these things, kind of new concept, just the last 2 years, really, 3 years where it really started coming, and especially where it started merging into the gaming world. So that is, you know, very kind of exciting, but it's still new. People are testing new concepts. You can see it was very active in the first part of 2022. And kind of the volumes on a monthly basis did go up into the multiple billions of dollars in the last year, basically. From basically around the 5 billion mark in January as far as traded transactional things, down to around $1 billion right now. And one of the more interesting things, like I said, is going into the gaming world and also into metaverse. So metaverse can mean many different things, but one of the concepts is that you can own part of the metaverse. You can have your own land. So you are in Minecraft, you have your own world, you have your own thing, and basically people have started extending this, and now there are quite a number of projects that have gotten up into the, you know, $1 billion plus category just from doing this model. So it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time to see these different worlds come together. And it's also exciting to talk about the future and what could exist in the future. So one of the things that I'm going to put out there as a sort of prediction, hopefully some of you will end up working on this or do something towards it, but basically in 20 years, so looking ahead, what does the next 20 years of metaverse look like? Well, we kind of are on this thing. I mean, Elon Musk is working on it, but like the ability for me to communicate something in my mind directly to someone in this room, on the other part of the world, without, you know, without writing something down. So sometimes we call this telepathy, but at some level we have it already. If I can do a little dance, and then you can see it, you do a dance back, we can communicate. And there's a lot of technologies that are making this more and more accessible in different ways. The other one is hyper-learning. I think hyper-learning is super exciting because we're basically giving children the tools now in the metaverse to basically be able to build things and explore, and they're learning new things sometimes, but they're also learning the same things that they used to learn much faster and more exciting. So take physics, for example. I don't know how people learn physics in this room, but usually they give you a bunch of formulas and math, and it's a little bit confusing. But what if it was in an immersive environment? So one of our partners right now is the Wolfram Institute. It's one of the most respected groups of physicists in the world, and we're building the idea that you can actually change the rules of physics in the environment around you and learn through that process. So very exciting, new ways of learning that will be there. And then potentially the most exciting or maybe useful thing for the world and other things is basically predicting the future. And I know it's very bold to say, predict the future, what can we see? But we're seeing it happen all around us. Right now, we talked about Google Maps and Google Street View, but a long time ago, you couldn't really tell how long it was going to take to drive from one side of one city to the other side. You had no idea. You looked at a map, you kind of had to guess. Now we have all of this data, from traffic data, from historical data, and now we can predict very clearly if it's raining, if there's a sports event, whatever it is, how are we going to get from one place to the next? How much time is it going to take? And the more that this is evolving, the more we have this kind of predictive ability for our governments, for our urban planning, for cities. Right now, if I want to build a fast food chain somewhere, I can tell you exactly where the traffic is going to be the best to basically make that into a successful business. So all of these things are emerging areas. I think there's an immense amount of business opportunity around all of them. There's also an incredible amount of educational and nonprofit opportunity. I think later, not right now, but I will come back and show some videos of some of the things that we've built, both in the nonprofit area, which I'm very excited about, and some of the other things that bridge in. So stay tuned, and thanks so much. It's just a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much, Joel. That was very inspiring, and I think we're all excited, but it also sounds like science fiction and something that we can't really think is going to happen, or at least it seems really far away, if impossible to me. But David, you actually think it's possible, so maybe you can actually step up and talk to us a little bit about how you're making this happen and how we can make that happen, we being all of us in this room. There's no reason that we collectively can't do this.
Thank you, Kristina. And yes, I come from the world of capacity building today. There we go. Here. I come from the world of capacity building today. What I work with on a daily basis is helping ecosystems, government programs in training the business advisors who are sitting face-to-face with entrepreneurs and technology entrepreneurs to help them build their businesses. So we do certification programs, we have tools and software for that. But I didn't always be in that world. I was an entrepreneur since I was 15 years old in Denmark. And I did start one of the first internet companies back in '93. And as we talk about these technologies today, I think we have a little case of history repeating. Because I recall from those early days of internet, where I was a 20-something-year-old entrepreneur that had learned something about this technology, and I was trying to convince clients that they should have a website. And I would explain that, oh, if you have a website, the whole world can call you by the telephone and they can read what is on the website. You can be connected to the entire world. And the clients would go like, are you saying that we should put all information about our company out so everybody could read it? That means the competitors can read it. Why would anyone do such a thing? My point is that back then, there was a lot of talk about the technology. We were trying to sell a technology more than selling the value of it, and no one at the time could conceive what this technology could even be used for. And I think it's a little bit the same today. Many of us will think right now, why would we have a metaverse when we can meet in person? Why would we engage in such a world? It doesn't make sense at this point. But it's a very powerful technology, just like the internet. So getting started, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, in exploring this world, and for those who represent governments and grant programs to provide funds to explore this, then you can see we will have some of the same patterns as we had back then. GrowthWheel is our tool. Is used in Denmark. It is used in 49 states in the US and around the world in 66 countries. And the message I want to just get across with that is that as we look around the world from ecosystems, different places, they're all facing this same challenge. Can I point the clicker somewhere to? Here we go. So if you look at the SBDCs in the United States, if you look at CEDA in South Africa, if you look at Cercotec in Chile, or if you look at the SPECs in Ontario or in Denmark, the growth houses, all of the ecosystems right now are looking at how is it that we can support entrepreneurs and technology entrepreneurs in this field. How can we build these capacities? And I think what I've seen also here in the Middle East, that you have very different companies, different regions, different technologies, but some of the fundamentals are still the same. So what is it really that it takes if you are an entrepreneur and you want to go into this world? Or how is it that you can build capacity if you are in a government program? Here's a statement. Maybe the technology is 5% of what is needed. That's a lot already. You need to understand the technology and learn about them, but there's so many other things that you need to deal with if you are going to be an entrepreneur and move into this area. So I'm going to suggest to you a way to look at it. 4 things that is involved in building technology entrepreneurs. So if you are an entrepreneur, there are 4 things that you want to pay attention to, and if you are a government program, you want to build capacity in these 4 areas. You certainly want to create an attractive business concept. That is a technology or a service that somebody wants to buy. So as we're looking at AI, metaverse, and all these things, the question remains, what is the value being created? So as you approach these technologies, that's the question. Not like us in the early 90s. Well, we have a technology, why don't you want a website? It wasn't good enough. We have to really focus on what creates value for people, for businesses, for government institutions. That will be the path. Technologies can be learned, technologies develop, they will change, but really understanding the value, I think, is the core skill of an entrepreneur. Even if you have a technology, it's not enough. You have to build an organization around it. Any business needs partners, investors. It needs employees that are skilled. It needs business processes. It needs legal frameworks and so on. That is a lot of it. So the ideas are not enough. The successful entrepreneurs will be those who not only have a good technology, but also have the organization behind it. So capacity building still needs to be in that field. Even if you have a great team, well, revenue can only come from one place, the customers. So any business with any technology must focus on how do we get new clients? How do we keep them? How do we grow them? And the capability, the talent, the skills to build relationships, whatever technology you're providing, have not changed. And lastly, even if you have a lot of customers and make a lot of revenue, you still need to make money. We heard examples of businesses that were not profitable with new technologies. This will happen again. So the skill sets, the winners, will be those who manage to use this technology and make a profit at the same time. By using the technologies in the right way, by being productive, getting the financing, and so on. So that is my main message, and I'm just going to skip through how this can be broken down a little further and jump 4 or 5 slides ahead, and we can get back to that later. And just, I think, conclude by saying, for those of you who are entrepreneurs in the room, if you approach me afterwards, I'll have a little tool for you where you can look at your business with a 360 perspective, because that is my main message here. As we are dealing with these new technologies, we should recognize that some things have not changed. Some things are the same. Successful entrepreneurs and capacity building is not only about the technology, it is also about the classic virtues of business, building a team, serving your customers, and making sure that you run your business efficiently and profitably. So I look forward to have that conversation here with you today.
Thank you so much, David. That was insightful. And when I think about things like blockchain and NFTs, I wonder who's using this? Is it a far-fetched thing, or do we actually have that technology today? How far are we from the metaverse? And so to help us understand how far away or actually how close we are, I'd like to invite Abdel to the stage to talk to us a little bit about what he's working on, because he's going to show us in action core technologies that are required to build the metaverse and where that's happening in everyday life today. So it's already here. Please take it away for us.
Thank you, Kristina. Okay. So I will start. You know, I work, about my experience, I work only for 1 year as a full-time job. Then I decide to work for myself. During that, I start working as a co-founder with a company represent the largest awarding company for the vocational education called City and Guilds. And during that journey in this company, we generate like $1 million in our first year without any resources using business card and website. And after I used to work as strategic business development for the MENA region, then I founded another company because my family, they are working in farming business for many generations, and we are producing olive oil. I founded a factory that packaged the olive oil in a small bottle from 20 milli to 60 milli size. And we start selling it for the restaurant and the 5-star hotels. And after that, the demand is increasing too fast for our company. And we start buying the products from other millers, other farmers, and we face a problem with the consistency for our brand. The people, they want to buy a premium extra virgin olive oil, but we cannot find it in the market. There is the farmer, he can contribute in that, the transportation, the storage, and the mill itself. And this is the main point that I live with before I founded Decapolis. And as I started the discovery in the end of 2018, how can I solve this problem? How can I know that these farmers, these mills, they are in compliance with my standard? They will give me what I want from them because I have a liability on my brand. And I was talking to other people in the Chamber of Industry and the dairy sector. He told me I have the same problem. In the processed meat, they have the same problem. And I found there is a big challenge here, and I should work on it. In the discovery stage, I work on building the quantified value proposition for these customers. And I found if I did this for you, what's the main cost for you? One of them, he have 300 audit visits per year. And he still have salmonella problem. He have food poisoning cases from his product, even the big brands all over the world. And I found there's a huge problem, and I need to work in it. Based in the QVB, I signed with 3 customers, and I went to the investor. I told them this is my initial investment, and I want to raise money. I'm planning to build this. I have 3 customers, and we want to build this technology for them to limit the liability and to help them to save the audit cost. And we raised our 100K in our first operating year in 2020, and we are now in 2022. We get acquired from one of the largest fresh produce company, Fresh Del Monte, worldwide, and we are implementing the solution with them with the $2 billion contract over 3 years to have this solution as a plug and play tool to start sourcing your product from any supply. And this is the case study that we are working on in the blockchain technology. We know what's the value for the business. And when we found, when you have 300 audit visits, they are reviewing paper that you filled 6 months ago, it doesn't help you to make sure if these people, they are really compliance with your standard or not. And we see this technology, it's gonna give a value for the food producers themselves and for the government authority to make sure that these food producers, they are in compliance with your standards. So we develop a new generation for the food safety and the quality assurance, traceability using the blockchain technology, where you have full integration for all the data from satellite images, IoT devices, sensors that will validate for you these people, they are in compliance with your standard, and also building AI algorithm that can detect any fraud happen while you are filling these data. And one of the case studies that we have with the World Food Program, when we start implement this in smallholder farmers in Jordan, they was thinking, you know, he told us, like one of the farmers, he was telling me I'm producing this fruit and they export it to Germany, but no one know about me. And I told them, I'm bringing for you the visibility. The people, they will know all the information about your crops from the seed, even if it's exported to Germany or if it's went to fresh cut facility as a raw material for other product, you will be visible. And all the effort that you will did to produce a safer product, everyone will know about it. And this will help you to sell your product in a higher price. And we help these farmers to increase their profit from 40 to 200% above the market price. And the people, they are willing to pay more. And also we implement this in olive oil industry. And what we found in the olive oil festival, the people behavior is changed. They stop when they want to buy the olive oil. They went and they scan the QR code. They want to know the source. It's irrigated or rain-fed. He start asking about all these details. What's the acidity? What's the pH? And I want the minimum acidity level. And we changed the whole behavior in the vegetable. Like if anyone bring his olive oil doesn't have our tamper-proof and the QR code in it, no one will buy from him. And this is changing for the whole generation of the food safety audit. And now we are working with the Food Safety Authority to use it, a plug and play tool to start importing food from any country, to make sure that the food safety authorities and the food safety producer, they are in compliance with their standard. And this is what we are working on to provide a safe food for all of us. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Abdel. I think what's interesting to hear here is you've actually heard some of the new and emerging technologies like blockchain and AI, things that can be used. I thought it was fascinating to listen to this because I learned that Jordan's been producing oil or harvesting olive oil for over 5,000 years. And you've disrupted the marketplace really by introducing blockchain. So very fascinating, and I think very interesting that this isn't just something for Jordan or for the region, this is for the world. Right? And so it's a very different marketplace. It's an opportunity to really do something on a global scale that disrupts things. I want to come back to you, Joel, for a moment and ask, you've had some hurdles. It's not always easy, right? There's a little bit of trial and error, I'm assuming, on this entrepreneurial road. What are the biggest challenges and how have you overcome them? What can everybody here maybe expect to experience before they see their success?
Well, one of the most common, startup wisdom type things is about product market fit and, finding the right connection between your audience. And, one of the challenges there is really going from the vision and creative future and then listening to the user and see exactly what they want and what they are engaged by. It's doubly, maybe triply important when you're doing games, because games really depend on a really high quality of engagement from the audience to really optimize for that. And it's a very challenging process, and it's very challenging to see the potential. This is my flaw, I guess you could say, see the potential of a particular technology, but not have enough people out there or have the technology be mature enough to basically be able to build something that qualifies as a consumer product. So, and I put that example on the slides, we have somewhat successful VR headsets today that people buy, but when they first launched 20 years ago, they were not successful at all. And thankfully, Nintendo is a company that had a lot of cash and was able to continue to be a successful company despite having a failed product. But if you were a startup, and I have been more on the startup side myself, your startup would die. And that is also a challenging thing because you have to be ready psychologically as otherwise for the concept of failure. You may fail. Your team may fail. It's a psychologically difficult thing for all of the people on your team to go through. But you can't see failure as the end either. There's always new possibilities, and even if something isn't mature today, it can be mature in 5 years or at some later point. And some of the things I worked on, in the early blockchain stuff are still in that category. Like yesterday, I had a call with Imar, and we were talking about real estate registries and various things like this. And no one has really done, a real estate registry that's well integrated with the legal system that allows you to do things through a digital asset, blockchain. I've looked at dozens of projects. I've been a part of at least 4 or 5 different projects, kind of like along the way to being something interesting, but not exactly a success that you would go and boast about. But I think the possibility is still there that it will happen, and sometimes it just takes time. So yeah, patience, I guess, is the other, the other virtue that you can have. Yeah.
I also heard a little bit of a challenge in that statement, I think, for everybody in the room. There's your next business idea. You just heard it here, right? We can do real estate directory, and somebody in this room could actually come up with the solution.
Absolutely. I mean, all it takes is the technology, which basically already exists. It's quite mature today. And then the right kind of tie-in from, the local legislation and whatever regulatory framework that allows you to transact, in a relatively seamless way, that makes it better than what existed previously. Yeah.
And David, I'm kind of thinking to myself, how long is this all going to take? Because a lot of people here might be impatient like I am. I don't want to wait 5 or 7 or 10 years to see if I'm going to fail or succeed, especially if I have to pay my rent or maybe put food on the table. So is there a way to build an infrastructure that stacks the odds in everybody's favor? What would you advise?
It depends on everybody in this room and in other rooms, not only on the entrepreneur side, who's going to do this? Who's going to actually leave this room and be inspired and say, this is the direction I want to go in. You may be someone who don't know these technologies now, not required. Being inspired is required. Also, those who represent government and investors and programs have a role to play, because you can go in and support these entrepreneurs. And I want to bring it back to something Joel said that I think is really important. This reality that many of these businesses are failing. And Joel shared some examples of that. Now, if you are a funder in a government or in a program, you give money to projects that you want to be successful. So I think it's helpful for anyone who's working in capacity building to realize, like investors know, that there's a certain amount of failure here. So in your programs, you may not always be able to produce the metrics you're looking for. We want job creation. We want revenue, profit. We want invested capital. And all these things that we work with in economic development. But, as Joel says, we should expect some failure. And sometimes, or many times I guess, entrepreneurs will start one business that fails. But because they went through that journey, they're going to come up with the next thing. So I think openness in government programs to accept failure and not be too focused on these longer-term metrics, but realizing that the path to those metrics, that everybody wants in economic development, may go through failure, and make that an accepted part of the culture. As we strive to avoid failure, of course, all the time, it is a part of the reality for investors, for governments, and for entrepreneurs themselves.
And Abedal, you were not guaranteed success. Nobody gave you a piece of paper that said you will succeed. You made your own path. What have you found inspires you along that path to keep you going, to overcome adversity, and ensure that you can really change not just your own business, but the world?
I think because the problem, it was too big, and everyone I talked to him, I'm willing to do this. He told me it's impossible. So I was very happy, and I said I'm on the right approach, because everyone would say it's complicated, you will not make it, it's very hard to do. So this has inspired me to work more hard on it, because I know I have less conviction in this world. And I work to minimize the risk through finding the early adopters who have the same pain and who's willing to invest, even if their team time. They are not willing to put money, but they are giving me their team time to work with me on develop this technology and to find how can you minimize the risk for the investors. And I think even in the beginning, when you fail fast, you will fail cheap. So you need to keep at the beginning, at the discovery, and with the early adopters, you can fail fast and fail cheap. And if you have the key thing is to find the right team to be with you and to believe in it, to sell the vision for them in the beginning before you talk to anybody else. So if you found the right team and you was able to sell them the vision and you found the early adopter, so you minimize the risk to fail. Even if you expect to fail, when you fail at the beginning, you will fail cheap. And will help you to modify, upgrade, to know where to focus. And I see in our experience with most of the food producer, every time we talk to them, we are busy, we are waiting for the audit. And it's take them 2 weeks, minimum, to prepare the audit report that it's filled 6 months ago, and he have operation in different countries, even in the same countries in different places. And he need to collect all of these data, even from Excel sheets. So we help them. Let's make it live, and you can generate this report within 2 seconds. You don't need to worry more about the audit. And what he want to see, what he want to review, you can prepare, just do the input live and validate for them. All these data, no one can modify it, no one can touch it. And we are changing our way. We want to validate. We are okay with accept our mistakes and share it with you. Because some of them, they are dealing with the paper. We will not get the certificate if we show them that we did all these mistakes. And when they will be transparent with the auditors and with their stakeholders in the supply chain, they will gain more trust. And this is the value that we found it through our engagement with the early adopters.
Thank you so much. I would turn now the tables on all of you in this room. We have 3 experts with us. What questions do you have? There has to be at least 1 or 2 questions. And so I think we have a microphone in the room. Somebody's carrying it, but I would like to actually invite everybody to come up with a question. And we have our first question over here. I don't know if there's a microphone so we can all hear you, please. Yes, I think the microphone's coming to you. Just 1 moment. We'll be right with you. And while they're getting the microphone set up, let me encourage you also that whatever question you have, there's no such thing as a silly question. Somebody else is probably thinking the same question. And if you prefer to ask your question in Arabic, feel free to ask it in Arabic as well. We'll be listening.
Yes, thank you very much for this very interesting, really, panel. My name is Amal Masri. I am from Palestine. And I am the editor-in-chief of Middle East Business Magazine, which is a regional magazine and a global one. And we wrote a lot about metaverse. And each time we wrote an article, everybody jumped over the opportunity, what is it? And people feel so curious, and some of them are happy, some others are worried. So for this, I have one question. How are we going to guarantee ethics on this new platform? This is number one, on social level and on business level. My other point, although I'm Palestinian, and it's one of the oldest home countries in the world, but I am as well a member at a new country called Liberland. I don't know if you have ever heard about it. And I'm a citizen there. And Liberland decided recently to go on metaverse. It's fully, you were speaking about the problems in real estate and in this regard. And it's a whole country, a small one, of 7 kilometers, somewhere in the Balkan area. It's all on metaverse. The design was all made by Zaha Hadid architects. It's amazing. So we can sometimes create countries that doesn't really exist. I will not advise that Palestine will go on metaverse. We will do it first, and on real life, and then, You never know where that could go. Thank you very much. Ethics is number one for us, really, human beings, on any new platform. Thank you. I would like to hear an answer for that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. David, maybe you want to give it a shot?
I think, again, that we should look for inspiration in some of the ways that ethics are already being handled. And I think around the world there has been a great process in privacy. I think maybe, from what I know, the European Union took quite a big step with the GDPR, which was annoying for many software companies. It wasn't always efficient. It wasn't easy to control if there was compliance and lots of other problems. But it was an attempt to secure, is an attempt to secure privacy, the freedom to own your data, the freedom to be forgotten, the right to be forgotten, and an obligation for companies to be transparent about how they manage data. So I really think that as we see new technologies coming around, there's a big responsibility for government to get that understanding of the technologies, and it will involve new ethical questions that we haven't reviewed yet and haven't answered yet. So this is certainly something that I believe that is an important priority for governments to have committees and councils that can explore these and understand these technologies, because I agree with you, it is of utmost important that the ethics follow along with any technology.
Joel, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, maybe it's a good time actually. Oh.
No, you should be okay.
It's not you.
Yeah, I think maybe it's a good time to play that first video actually, if you don't mind. Because, you know, a lot of, I mean, there's the ethics of stopping from people doing things that are wrong, basically, that are inappropriate, which, you know, is an important, like, policy and policing method for really every platform that's out there. And then there's the encouraging people to do things that are positive for, you know, society, for each other, you know, good, and kind of setting the tone. And one that's up here on the screen now is actually, hopefully you guys can see it, is this one of our, you know, projects is being built literally last week, but it's the Plantiverse, and it's basically this grow to earn model where people are taking live greenhouses and the plants inside of them, bringing them into the metaverse, and then basically allowing this sort of life to be, the growing of the plants to be visualized globally, and then you can also interact with the plants. So it's a very interesting thing. I mean, it goes into this direction of how do we imagine the future that we want to live in, and bring some energy towards that, the creative energy, as I said before, and the pieces. And, you know, potentially a financial model that makes sense where everyone is rewarded who participates. And then, you know, kind of, and I think in some ways that's the most important, because if you bring together the right momentum and the right energy, then the system will kind of naturally police itself. It doesn't mean that people won't come on board who have bad intentions or, you know, whatever, every, you know, platform has to deal with this. But, you know, you can have people who kind of just naturally, you know, spot the kind of bad eggs, so to speak, in the very early stages and kind of remove them. So I think, you know, so both are important, but I would actually love to hear from our moderator as well, because I know that she has done some work on the ethics in this realm. So.
All right, well, I'll be put on the spot, but I will answer from a digital policy perspective, since that's my other hat that I wear when I'm not here. I would say that there are certainly risks and there are opportunities. Just like with any technology, it can be used for good or for bad. And what we do with it is up to us, obviously everybody in the room, up to governments, up to nonprofits, NGOs. All of us have to understand and have a role in playing out what will the metaverse entail in taking advantage of those opportunities and minimizing the risk. And so I'll put a plug in very shortly and just say in December, XRSI is offering a free Metaverse Safety Week. We will have 5 days of conversations around what the metaverse ought to look like. We'll be talking about it from a human rights perspective. We'll be talking about a children's safety perspective, medical XR, media entertainment, but also policy and trust and governance. And so what I want to say is we're already starting to think about that, because what we know from historical technologies is that we haven't always had privacy, we haven't always had safety, but the other part is we haven't had what we call accessibility. It's one thing to say, you're invited, come build things. It's another thing to actually provide money and provide the means for you to participate. We recognize that not everybody is fortunate to be able to do that. And so XRSI is sponsoring this third annual Metaverse Safety Week, but we're also giving away scholarships to ensure that those who have not traditionally been represented can be represented in the metaverse technology as we go forward. So I would say that that's an ethical dilemma that a lot of people are talking about. From my perspective, I think we need to also take steps now and move that forward. It's not enough just to talk about the risks. There are many, but I also believe that there are opportunities. We just have to balance them out. So, any other questions? Please, if we can pass the mic. I'm not sure where it is. It will come back to you, sir.
Good morning, everyone, and thanks a lot for a very insightful panel. My name is Abdu. I have two hats. I take startup hats. I'm in the voice AI domain with Lila, and also I run Egyptpreneur, which is a business enabler in Egypt. I have a question, given that most attendees come from either an official backgrounds or business enablement backgrounds, and all these technologies seems to be pretty cool, but what can they do in order for them to build capacities for entrepreneurs and for tech talent in their countries? What are the existing models that have been successful in building capacity both on the business side and also on the tech side using these technologies? Things like challenge-based hackathons and different other models, because these could be very, very valuable for the attendees to understand this is pretty cool, but what can we do about it?
Thank you. David?
Yeah. As you say, there's a lot of different things going on in the ecosystems around the world to support entrepreneurs, from hackathons, mentor programs. I certainly think you would agree that having a good mentor for your business is a critical thing to have. There are education programs, there are things in universities, there are private consultants out there that is part of the ecosystem and so on. So there's very, very many different activities going on. They're surprisingly similar in all countries. But I think for those who want to improve such ecosystems, you should do the same as someone who is developing or working with a new technology, which is to look around and learn. So if you are a clever entrepreneur, you're going to check out the competition. You want to know what's going on. You want to be in the know about it. And I think that's something that is sometimes lacking in the entrepreneurial support system, really learning from abroad and the best practices from the other countries, in particularly because the ecosystems are so similar. So the activities are the same. You're really going to look into the details to see what are those very successful acceleration programs, right? Incubation programs. How is it that business advisors go through a formal training program, for example, something that is lacking somewhere, and so on. So that would be my take on it. The way to improve the ecosystem, one activity to start with, is to find those best practices around the world.
Thank you. I want to make sure that we get to as many questions as possible. Can we please have the microphone for the gentleman at the front table? He had his hand up as well. We'll try and get to everybody in the room too. And if not, we will make sure that we stick around after the panel so you can have some one-on-one discussions and ask your questions. Please.
Thank you very much, everybody. And I will have maybe rather a comment than a question, but you can comment on my comment if you like. I will refer to the comment from Joe at the beginning that we should look at the best fit to market, which is very strong and very good statement, because maybe we can be driven by our passion or our fantasy, that we go driven by the metaverse and we want to fly to the space, and we want to do crazy things like we do in the gaming when we are playing games. But at the end of the day, as you said, we need to put our food on the table at the end of the day. We need to pay our bills. So this is a very important combination which everybody must look at. Now, I'm considered as one of the experts in the blockchain and metaverse and other technologies as well. And back then, when we started, for example, introducing augmented reality, in this part of the world, in general, it failed. It failed miserably, I will say. Nobody realized what the potential was for it from the other end. And we tried our best to introduce it, but it failed. That's a fact. Now, then we talked about the mixed reality, which is the second wave of these technologies. And people are more accepting it because I think they realize it more. Moving to the blockchain at the beginning, people were always connecting it to the cryptocurrencies with all the legislation issues, with all the talk about the cryptocurrency in general. But at the end of the day, we managed to convince some of the governments in this part of the world, which I believe is a big achievement, not only for me, but for the technology itself, to move their government services to blockchain. I think that was a big achievement, and that's the application part of the technology, whereby the government, they said, okay, we want the traffic department, for example, to handle everything on a blockchain, from registering cars, keeping records of cars, transferring car ownerships, issuing tickets for any fines or violations, which comes instantly. And then we move to the land registration, which they are going to issue the title deeds and all this on blockchain, having a smart contract, which they realize the importance of that, which is very important, and it's an achievement, I guess. And then we are talking about universities and certificates, which is even more important, so then they can authenticate the certificates from the universities, wherever they are from, using blockchain and using smart contracts. Now, Ethereum was an issue because Ethereum have very high gas fees, or the transaction fees in the lame language, so that they had to look for an alternative, which is a cheaper alternative. And that's one of the issues we have with Ethereum, for example, as a platform. Talking about the mixed reality and the metaverse, I think today we managed to convince the educational sector more that they can use it, and they start implementing it in the education. So then for students, it's more fun. As Joe mentioned, for example, physics maybe and math are most of the boring subjects for some people. But using metaverse, using mixed reality makes it very interesting at the end of the day. So this is just from a local experience, a local point of view. And I believe this is the future at the end of the day, and it's good that we have everybody here. HoloLens, for example, when I tried it in my office back in 2015-16, when people saw me wearing it in the pictures, people were asking what a crazy thing this guy is doing, which is fine for me. But when one of the big guys from this part of the world traveled to San Francisco and paid $500 million as an investment for one of the companies developing the technology related to metaverse and HoloLens and all that, then everybody started taking it seriously. So things are coming from different perspectives, different angles, and the timing is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think a round of applause actually is warranted. Appreciate that. All right, I think we only have time for 2 more questions. We have one here, and I think there was somebody over on this side of the room, so I haven't forgotten you. I saw your hand up. Can we pass the mic right over here to the front, and we'll then go over to the left and ask your question.
Good morning, great panel. Thank you for putting that together. My question is for Abedalrhman. There's a lot of startups, SMEs here in this room and attending the conference, and you seem to have tapped into the global opportunities that there are, and they're plentiful. I'm wondering what advice, if there's one thing you can give to the entrepreneurs here, how can they replicate this success that you've achieved thus far in just 2 years? Thank you.
Hard question. Okay. So, my key advice is they don't need to care about the technology, how much is big, because the technology, it's going to be a tool. Maybe today we are using blockchain technology, tomorrow we are using something else. The more important thing is the key value for the customer and how you are going to deliver it to them. You can deliver it without using the technology at the beginning. And this is one of our first approach. We used to use something called the QLDB. It's just a one ledger. It's not blockchain at all. You don't need a lot of talent and experts to implement this. But we was focusing on implement the value for these customers. And once they see the value and you validate the business, they are willing to pay money for that, you will scale up and grow. So, yeah, you need to start. As I mentioned in my previous example, we sell the product for 3 customers using a quantified value proposition in Excel sheet. We don't have product and we don't know how does it look like, but we understand what has been and how much it costs them. And for that, they said, if you can do that, I'm willing to put all my team effort to work with you. And once you have something, we are willing to pay for that. Yeah, and that's my advice.
Thank you. I see Kareem here, but if we can just take one last question from the table over to the left, because we actually had a question earlier.
Good morning.
Good morning.
ميساء جديد من لبنان. Founder Maisa course. Sorry. You have a center, online center tutoring. بالنسبة للتعليم بدي أضيف للي قاله الأستاذ. التعليم صار بحاجة لأنه نتعلمه بطريقة ممتعة أكثر، وخصوصي بعد كوفيد صار في عدم حماس للطالب إنه يتعلم. فمثل ما حضرة المستر عامل جيم كرمال الاقتصاد الأخضر أو في البيئة الخضراء، بركي نقدر نعمل شيء بالنسبة للتعليم لحتى الطالب يقدر يدرس بطريقة ممتعة. وخصوصي إن أنا عندي برايفت كورس، يعني أنا عندي tutoring after school. يعني الطالب عم ياخذ وقت كتير طويل بالتعليم 6 ساعات 7 ساعات، بيرجع بيجي لعندي كمان بياخذ 3-4 ساعات تعليم. بركي بنقدر نعمل جيمينج أو نقدر نعمل شيء بخص التعليم بهذا. شكرا للجميع.
That is a wonderful comment. We really appreciate that. I know we're running out of time because I've gotten my warning signal twice now. What I would say is we can definitely stick around. Will you please stick around, gentlemen, and take additional questions from the audience? Please don't go away without asking your questions. What I want to say, though, this panel has been really inspiring to me. I really appreciate it. What I'm going to be taking away, and I hope you all do as well, certainly, Joel, what you mentioned, which is it's a time of opportunity, lots of opportunity. And this is a moment for all of us to step up. The only risk you will realize is the one that you don't take, right? So you have to try. There's lots of opportunities out there, but if you don't try, they're not going to come to realization. And one of the things that I come back to again is what we started this conference with, which is nothing is impossible. I really appreciate all of the real life stories. I mean, just like what you're doing, making it happen, it's very much possible. And I think we've said that in the room, we've proven it through everything we're hearing. Still lots of opportunities. The time is now, and it's your time. So we hope that you'll all join really what is happening in the technology space. We hope you'll be part of the revolution, if you will, to the next era of the internet, which is the metaverse, because you have a role to play, you need to be represented, and certainly all of us need you there with us. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Wow. That was a great panel. Thanks a lot for your moderation, Kristina, and many thanks, Joel, David, Abedalrhman. You did great. You inspired all the people who are sitting here. And I'll say to you in Arabic, shukran. Thank you.
Thank you.
والآن عندنا استراحة سريعة لمدة ربع ساعة بعد إذنكم. الساعة 11:10. 11:10. Please come to the room for the next panel. وخليكم معانا لاخر اليوم. النهارده عندنا مفاجاه زي ما قلت لكم في الكلوزنج سيشن. خلاص، فبعد اذنكم الساعه 11:10 بالظبط كلنا في الغرفه. يلا نشوفكم على خير.
فرجيني. أظبط.